So guys, the first episode of the new Disney Plus series Loki has officially been released, and with that I'll be starting a brand new weekly series where I'll be covering every single episode and just giving my thoughts on it and breaking it down. This is something that I've pretty much done for every single Disney Plus series. We did this for the Falcon and Winter Soldier, I'm currently doing it for the Bad Batch as well, and now we have Loki. For any of you guys that are a little bit unfamiliar with this, these videos are a little bit different from my regular ones. They're a little bit less scripted and a little bit less structured. It's just me talking and giving my thoughts almost like in a podcast style. Now, typically I completely spoil the episodes that I'm discussing, but with this episode we're going to do things a little bit differently just because it's the first one, and I know a lot of you guys probably haven't had a chance to see the episode or want to know what the show is actually like. So we're going to do this video a little bit differently. The first bit is going to be a non-spoiler section, then I'll give you guys a warning, and then we'll discuss all the spoilers. So let's just go right ahead with the non-spoiler section of this video. So overall, I do really like this episode. I think it is probably the strongest pilot of any of the Marvel series that we've seen so far, and it really dramatically expands the MCU. And that is the thing that I wanted to see most from this show. I was looking forward to it so much just because I thought it would expand the MCU like crazy. And in this first episode alone, we do get to see quite a bit of stuff. Like, this episode really does feel like a Marvel theater experience, except it's at home. It feels like you're watching a Marvel movie split up into pieces. I know I said the same thing with the Falcon Winter Soldier, but this show just feels a little bit more cinematic. I don't know if it's the outfits or the CGI or just the quirky nature of the show. It just feels like you're watching a movie. Anyways, this first episode is really long, which is actually a good thing because it feels like we get one concise story. Like, from the beginning of the episode to the end, it felt like one whole story arc. It wasn't chopped up in the middle or anything. It obviously does tease things for the next episode, but in general, we get one concise story within this episode. It reminds me a little bit of The Mandalorian in that way, where things progress, except every episode is still like one concise story. So that, I think, is actually a good thing. The overall retro high-tech feel combined with this heightened sense of mystery is awesome. It gives me like these Stranger Things or even Control vibes. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of that before, but Control is a video game and it just feels very similar, but I'm liking it a lot. I'm not sure what you call this genre or if it even is one, but it's like this 80s mixed with mystery type of thing, and I really do like it. One of the things that surprised me the most about this show was the amount of comedy in it. I think all of it did land pretty well. The comedy is quite goofy and even quirky at times, but it's all fun. It really feels like it takes on some inspiration from Thor Ragnarok. It's definitely not taking itself too seriously, and I think that's a great thing because it feels like the show is almost self-aware. And some of the other things, like the visual effects, were spot on. It looked exactly the same as you would expect from an MCU film. And on top of that, one thing that did surprise me was the soundtrack. It's very unique and it seems like it wouldn't work, but it actually does. Like, if I had to describe it, I'd say it's this old school mystery theme with like hints of Nordic music. I know that sounds really weird, but just trust me, it sounds amazing and it works very well for this show. And that pretty much does it for my non-spoiler thoughts on this episode. I did like it quite a bit, especially due to the fact that it expanded the MCU so much. I really wasn't expecting it from this show, but they did do it and I'm glad they did. Anyways, I can't really say anything else without spoiling the episode, so if you guys haven't seen the first episode of Loki, make sure to go watch that first and then come back and then watch this video. So there it is, guys, that is your spoiler warning. Let's go ahead and talk spoilers. So the first thing that I wasn't expecting from this show was the amount of scenes that we got from the other MCU films. Like, we straight up got to see entire moments from the first Avengers movie, Avengers Endgame, Thor Ragnarok, and more. I was not expecting this at all, but I'm very glad they did this because it makes the entire show feel very connected to the rest of the MCU, even more so than the other Marvel series. Like, don't get me wrong, WandaVision and the Falcon and Winter Soldier do feel connected to the MCU as well, but this just feels so much more connected just because the amount of stuff going on here with the Infinity Stones and seeing all those scenes from those other movies, it feels very connected. And I think that may be part of why this felt like such a theater experience at home. I'm not really sure what it was, it's just that watching this episode felt like I should have been watching it in theaters. So that was definitely pretty neat. Anyways, Loki is obviously the main character here, and he's the one that I'm the most impressed with. Now, originally when they announced that Loki was going to be getting his own Disney Plus series, I was very skeptical of this. I thought it might be a dumb idea just because I thought it would undermine his death that we saw in Infinity War. Like, part of the reason that Infinity War held so much weight is because of the amount of permanent things that happened in that movie. One of those permanent things being Loki's death. But I guess it turns out that pretty much anyone important who died in that movie, that being Loki or Vision, are going to be coming back. And while that does kind of take away from the experience of Infinity War, I honestly don't mind it all that much. It gives us these really great Marvel series which expands on all these characters so much more, so I'm really happy to see it. Now, another reason I wasn't looking forward to the show too much was that I thought it would feel a little bit redundant seeing him go through these same character arcs as the Loki that we've seen before. Like, I knew this Loki was going to be the 2012 Loki from the first Avengers movie. I just thought he was going to go through the same character arc of learning not to be a bad guy. But they have handled it pretty well so far by letting this Loki see his entire future and what he becomes. That scene was definitely my favorite in this whole episode, and I think it helps differentiate this Loki from the one in the current timeline. We're going to see him change a lot in this series, and I think his character arc is going to be different to what we've already seen. That's a very important thing for me in this show. I don't want this Loki to feel too much like the last one. And that's not because I dislike the other Loki or anything, I just want to see some new story arcs around this character. Anyways, in that scene, Tom Hiddleston got to stretch his acting skills there as well, which was very well done. I gotta say that acting was spot on. That moment of Loki watching his mother and father die, and then seeing the future of his relationship with Thor, it was just such a touching moment. It seems like Marvel really likes to give this to us with these Disney Plus series of these emotional scenes with these characters breaking down. We saw that in WandaVision, we saw Bucky do that in the Falcon Winter Soldier, and now we got Loki doing that here as well. And I'm all for it because it helps you feel for these characters so much more. And the most important part of that scene was the moment where he watched himself die. That was super cool. I never expected to see something like that this early on in the show. Like, it just really makes me think if they're showing things like this in the first episode, I can't wait to see what the other episodes have to offer. So far, I'm really enjoying Loki's character in this show, and I can't wait to see how he's going to progress throughout the season. Anyways, the biggest addition to the MCU in this episode was the TVA, also known as the Time Variance Authority. I like what the TVA represents because it shows that we are stepping out of the Infinity Saga into a much larger universe where the biggest issues are much larger than just Infinity Stones. I mean, they pretty much spelled it out for us. They gave us that scene where they are literally using Infinity Stones as paperweights, so you know these guys are completely OP. Like, there were just a bunch of them from different branches just chilling there in a drawer, which made my jaw drop. I know Thanos would do absolutely anything to get his hands on that drawer. Anyways, the important thing here is that it really put into perspective how powerful the forces of good and evil are going to be in this show. Like, if you thought Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlets were some really powerful things, then the TVA is about to blow your mind. Also, I'm pretty sure that Loki grabbed a time stone here. I'm not completely sure about that, but I think he did grab one of the green ones. So it looks like Loki will have wielded 3 Infinity Stones in his lifetime, which is not something that a lot of people can say. Even though the TVA is supposed to be this big, powerful organization, I love that their overall design and art style is straight out of the 80s. It looks super retro and old and not high-tech at all, which is kind of ironic since they're supposed to be this ultimate power, but honestly I think that fits right in with the irony and the quirkiness of this show. Now, I am speculating here, but I do feel like the Time Watchers and the TVA are going to be like the bad guys. I'm just speculating since I don't really know anything about them in the comics, but I do feel like they're going to be evil. I like to do these a lot with these weekly series, just shoot my shot, give out these super hot takes, and just see if any of them become true. Most of the times I am wrong, but you know what? It's still fun to guess. Anyways, the next big character in this show here is Mobius, who's played by Owen Wilson. All his interactions with Loki feel great. Both actors have some really great chemistry with each other. It reminds me a bit of the other two series where the two leads would bounce off each other so well. We had Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany in WandaVision, we had Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan in the Falcon Winter Soldier, and now we have Tom Hiddleston and Owen Wilson in Loki. This just really shows you how important casting is, and Marvel's casting is top notch. Anyways, every question that Mobius was asking Loki here added so much depth to his character, other than him being a standard villain. Like, Mobius was constantly asking Loki if he likes to hurt people, and it really shows Loki's layers. And this ultimately leads to Loki accepting that he is the way he is, out of weakness, not power. Like, every villain is the hero in their own story, and I think Loki in the beginning of this episode represents that perfectly. Like, remember what I said about this episode having one concise story arc? You really do feel that here with Loki's character, who kind of goes on this journey throughout this first episode. We don't know that much about Mobius's character or what his motivations are, but in general, he seems like a good guy so far, just trying to stop this variant from messing things up. And I guess that's why he needs Loki's help here, but I still feel like he's going to end up evil in some way. I don't know what it is, I just don't trust this whole TVA thing, and Mobius just sounds like a bad guy's name. Again, I don't know anything about him in the comics, I'm completely speculating here, but if you guys do know, make sure to let me know down in the comments what you think. Anyways, speaking of that variant they're hunting, Mobius says that it literally is a variant of Loki, but I think I know who it'll be due to some of the LEGO rumors and leaks. So just based off what we know from the upcoming LEGO sets this year, I definitely think it's going to be Lady Loki. This isn't confirmed or anything, it's just me speculating, but I think there is a really good chance it will be her. I don't really know anything about her character in the comics either. I'm not sure if she's a good guy or a bad guy, but in general, I do think she's the variant they're after. So I think that's my hot take for this week, although I don't think it's that bad because it does seem kind of reasonable. But make sure to let me know who you think this variant will be down in the comments. I know I pretty much covered the main parts of this episode, but I did want to talk about one really important character, that being Casey, and I have already fell in love with this character. He is absolutely hilarious, and I want to see so much more of him in this show. I'm really hoping by the end of this series, somebody gets this man a fish. It's just crazy to me this guy has a drawer full of Infinity Stones, but doesn't know what a fish is. I don't know, man, Casey is absolutely hilarious, and I love his character. Also, I feel like there are literally a million different Easter eggs that I missed in this episode. I've seen some crazy theories online about how people thought they saw Peggy Carter in the show. There's like this one sequence where there's a lady walking in the background, and everyone thought it was Peggy Carter being moved around by the TVA. This is probably not going to be true, but it's just fun to have something to speculate about and create all these wild theories for. This is something that we couldn't really do for the Falcon Winter Soldier just because it was more of a straight up show and we knew exactly what we were getting. We did get to do a lot of this with WandaVision, although a lot of those theories did not turn out to be true, but still it was a lot of fun to guess at all these future possibilities. So I'm glad to kind of see that return with this show. But I think that pretty much does it for my overall thoughts on episode 1 of Loki. I think as you guys can tell, I really did like this episode. I think it's probably the best of any of the pilots that we've seen for any of the Marvel Disney Plus series. I think it may even be better than the pilot of The Mandalorian, although I am a Star Wars guy, so I may be kind of biased there. But yeah, this is a great first episode, and I can't wait to see what the rest of the episodes have to offer. I think there will be 6 episodes in total this season, although I'm not entirely sure about that. 6 episodes does seem right because this episode did feel a little bit long. Like if it was around 30 minutes, I'd expect this season to last 8 weeks, but I think this episode was around 40 plus minutes or something like that, so I think it's going to go for around 6 episodes. But yeah, guys, make sure to let me know what you guys thought about the first episode of Loki down in the comments below. Did you guys enjoy the episode at all? Who do you think that variant is going to be? And how would you compare this pilot with the other pilots of the other Marvel series? Whatever you're thinking, guys, anything and everything, make sure to leave it down in the comments below. But that will pretty much do it for me. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.